In the shadows of a world hidden from view, where the line between human and supernatural blurs, emerges a tale of two unlikely heroes. Welcome to the extraordinary saga of Lucas and Elara, werewolves bound not just by their shared nature, but by a relentless quest for justice. Every episode unravels a new chapter in their ongoing battle against the corrupt and the cruel. From the depths of the occult to the heights of corporate towers, they move in silence, striking where least expected. Their mission: to save the innocent and expose the malevolent. Armed with their wits, supernatural abilities, and a bond unbroken by adversity, they face adversaries both human and beyond. In a world where the prey can turn predator and the hunter becomes the hunted, Lucas and Elara navigate the grey areas of morality, justice, and loyalty. Join us as we delve into the heart of darkness, where danger lurks in every corner and courage is the only light. This is not just a journey through the night, it's a quest to bring balance to a world veiled in secrecy and rife with hidden threats. Get ready to enter a realm where myths come alive and heroes are born under the light of the moon. This is the world of Lucas and Elara. This is Lunar Shadows, the Chronicles of Lucas and Elara. Chapter 1. The Haunting of the Asylum. Lucas and Elara travelled the winding road leading to the abandoned asylum, their vehicle cutting through the dense fog that seemed to cling to the desolate landscape. Lucas, gripping the steering wheel, broke the silence with a grumble. "I really hate ghosts. They're always so ghostly." Elara, seated beside him with a stack of notes on her lap, couldn't help but smile at his discomfort. "Well, this asylum isn't just about ghosts." Zephyr mentioned unusual activities, something more sinister than your typical haunting. The asylum, a towering structure silhouetted against the grey sky, loomed in the distance. Its history was one shrouded in mystery and tragedy. Once a place for the mentally ill, it had gained a reputation for its harsh treatments and the unexplained disappearances of several patients. Zephyr said the spirits are restless, disturbed by something. Elara continued. "If there are secret experiments going on, it could be the cause of the hauntings." Lucas shuddered slightly. "Great. Restless spirits and secret experiments. Just another day at the office for us." As they neared the asylum, the oppressive weight of the building's dark history became palpable. The once majestic institution now stood in ruins, its walls holding untold stories of suffering and despair. Parking their vehicle at a safe distance, Lucas and Elara gathered their gear. They knew they had to tread carefully, as the asylum was likely to be fraught with unseen dangers, both supernatural and human. Elara led the way, her flashlight cutting through the fog. "Remember, our goal is to find out what's really happening here and help these spirits find peace. There could be more to this place than just hauntings." Lucas nodded, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The thought of facing the unknown, especially when it involved ghosts, unnerved him, but he trusted Elara's instincts. Together, they stepped into the eerie silence of the asylum's grounds, ready to uncover its hidden secrets. As they made their way towards the imposing entrance, the whispers of the past seemed to echo around them, a chilling reminder of the asylum's sorrowful legacy. What they would find inside, however, remained to be seen. The journey into the heart of the asylum's mysteries had just begun. Chapter 2. The Undead Guardians. Elara glanced at the waning crescent moon in the sky, a grim reminder of their current vulnerability. "We're still a week away from the full moon cycle. We'll have to be extra cautious since we can't change," she said, her eyes scanning the perimeter of the asylum. "What about the moon torch?" Lucas asked, hopeful. "That only lasts a few seconds when the moon isn't out. It won't be much help to us here," Elara replied, her tone indicating the seriousness of their situation. As they approached the imposing structure of the asylum, they noticed something unsettling. The cemetery adjacent to the asylum had been disturbed. Grave after grave lay open, the bodies that once rested within them gone. Elara and Lucas exchanged worried looks. "Please, not zombies," Elara muttered with a grimace. "They're so disgusting." They tried several doors, but each was securely locked. The asylum seemed impenetrable until they heard an eerie moaning and shuffling nearby. In the darkness, a shambling figure emerged. "Zombies," Elara confirmed, her voice tinged with disgust. "Must be a type of zombie lookout," Lucas speculated, watching the figure move with an unsteady gait. They quickly hid, and the zombie passed by without noticing them. Seizing the opportunity, they found an old window that was slightly ajar and climbed through into the foreboding interior of the asylum. The inside of the asylum was as chilling as its exterior. As they cautiously navigated the dimly lit corridors, they came upon a horrific scene. Bodies lay scattered around, but these were no ordinary corpses. The undead, zombies in various states of decay, blocked their path. Elara and Lucas moved silently, avoiding any unnecessary noise that could alert the zombies to their presence. The atmosphere was tense, each step fraught with danger. Lucas whispered, "Looks like we're dealing with more than just ghosts and experiments. Someone's been raising the dead." Elara nodded, her mind racing to piece together the connection between the disturbed graves and the zombies. "We need to find out who's behind this and what they're doing to these spirits and these bodies." They continued deeper into the asylum, aware that they were surrounded by the undead. The moans of the zombies echoed through the halls, a constant reminder of the nightmare that the asylum had become. Lucas and Elara were determined to uncover the truth and put an end to the horrors within these walls. The path ahead was uncertain, but they were ready to face whatever lay in the darkness, united in their mission to bring peace to the tormented souls of the asylum. Chapter 3. Cornered in the laboratory. Elara and Lucas stood at an impasse, the hallway ahead swarming with mindless shambling zombies blocking their path. "We can't get past this," Elara whispered, surveying the horde with a wary eye. Lucas, a smirk forming on his face, said, "Wait, I have an idea. I saw this in a movie once. It's called the Old Okie Doke." Moving stealthily to the opposite side of the building, Lucas banged loudly on the wall. The zombies, attracted by the noise, began to shuffle towards the sound, their groans echoing through the dimly lit corridors. Emerging from the shadows, Lucas rejoined Elara, a triumphant look on his face. "See? It works," he said, gesturing to the now clearer path. Taking advantage of the diversion, they swiftly made their way through the hallway, evading the remaining undead. They approached a door with a small window, which seemed to lead to a laboratory. Peering through, they witnessed a macabre scene. Inside, bodies were strapped to tables, their limbs animated independently, jerking and twitching unnaturally. Jars filled with unknown substances bubbled and hissed, while strange machines emitted a low, ominous hum. "Looks like a Frankenstein movie," Lucas muttered, his eyes scanning the grotesque setup. A robed figure moved about the laboratory, engrossed in his eerie work. After a few minutes, the figure paused and looked up, seemingly sensing their presence. "Let's get out of here," Elara said urgently, but as they turned to leave, they found the hallway, now densely packed with undead, advancing toward them with outstretched arms. Left with no other option, Elara and Lucas burst through the door into the laboratory. The robed figure, startled by their sudden entrance, turned to face them. His face was obscured by a hood, but his eyes glinted with malevolent intelligence. "Intruders!" he hissed, his voice a blend of surprise and annoyance. Lucas and Elara quickly assessed their surroundings, looking for anything they could use to defend themselves. The laboratory was filled with dangerous equipment and unsettling specimens, but it also held clues about the sinister experiments taking place. "Who are you? What are you doing to these people?" Elara demanded, her tone sharp and commanding. The figure sneered, "You'll soon find out." Lucas and Elara readied themselves for a confrontation, knowing they were in the heart of the Asylum's dark secrets. Whatever this person was doing, they were about to put an end to it. The fight for the truth and the liberation of the tormented souls had led them to this moment, and they were prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 4. The Necromancer's Revelation. The robed figure, his voice dripping with disdain, addressed Lucas and Elara. "You should not have come here, whoever you are. But now that you're here, you will serve well in my experiments. 2 live specimens will greatly aid me." Elara, her fists clenched in anger, confronted him. "What are you doing here? Those bodies shuffling around out there. They can never find peace while you control them." "My work." "Nothing matters but my work," the figure replied, his tone dismissive and cold. "Right," Lucas said, a hint of sarcasm in his voice. He lunged forward, intending to subdue the figure, but was stopped abruptly in his tracks by an unseen force. "Do you think me powerless?" the figure scoffed. "The undead would be all over us in this room if I were." His words carried the weight of a dark authority. He then revealed his identity. "I am a necromancer, a master of the dark arts. My experiments here are paramount. The dead are merely tools, resources for my pursuit of knowledge and power. I raise the undead not for mere amusement, but to unlock the secrets of life and death." His eyes gleamed with a fanatic zeal as he spoke about his work. "I seek to transcend the boundaries of mortality. These experiments, the reanimation of the deceased, are steps towards that ultimate goal." Lucas and Elara exchanged a glance, their situation becoming increasingly dire. The necromancer's control over the undead and his dark powers made him a formidable opponent. Elara, her mind racing for a solution, said, "Your work is an abomination. You're desecrating the dead and tormenting their souls. We won't let you continue this madness." The necromancer merely smiled, a twisted expression of amusement and confidence. "You have no say in the matter. You are now part of my grand design." Lucas, still immobilized by the necromancer's magic, struggled against the invisible bonds. They needed to find a way to break free from his grasp and put an end to his nefarious activities. The lives and peace of countless souls, both living and dead, depended on it. The battle against the dark necromancer had just begun. Chapter 5. The creation of the death golem. Bound back to back with the eerie rope, Lucas and Elara struggled against their restraints. "I think this rope is made of human skin," Lucas said, a note of disgust in his voice. "I think I'm going to be sick," Elara replied, her stomach churning at the thought. The necromancer, oblivious to their revulsion, continued his macabre work, moving between various grotesque experiments. Suddenly, he let out a triumphant cry. "Yes, it's working. I've done it. I have created life, not just a mere reanimation, but a true creation. I am a god." On a slab in the center of the laboratory, a colossal body, assembled from various body parts, began to twitch and move. "I told you it was like Frankenstein," Elara murmured. "I don't think that's all it is," Lucas said, eyeing the stirring creature warily. The creature sat up, its movements jerky and unnatural. "My death golem," the necromancer announced proudly. "More powerful than any creature and capable of controlling the dead." "Oh crap," Lucas muttered, realizing the gravity of their situation. "Now to test him," the necromancer said, turning his gaze towards Lucas and Elara. "I want him to kill you, then bring you back as his eternal undead slaves." The death golem rose to its full height, towering over them menacingly, its eyes, devoid of any human warmth, fixed on Lucas and Elara. The necromancer's words echoed in the lab, filling the air with a sense of impending doom. Elara and Lucas exchanged a look of determination. Despite their dire circumstances, they had faced overwhelming odds before, and they were not about to give up now. Even bound and seemingly powerless, they were not without resources. Lucas tried to wiggle his hands, feeling for anything that could help them escape their bonds. Elara, focusing her mind, searched for a weakness in their captor's plans. The death golem advanced slowly, its steps heavy and ominous. The necromancer watched with glee, anticipating the fulfillment of his twisted desires. But Lucas and Elara were not ready to become puppets in his macabre play. They had to act quickly and decisively, their lives and their very souls at stake, in the clutches of the necromancer and his monstrous creation. The battle for their freedom and to stop the necromancer's dark ambitions was about to begin. Chapter 6. A tenuous reprieve. Elara's quick thinking momentarily stayed the looming threat of the death golem. "Wait," she called out. "We're werewolves. If you kill us now, you'll just have 2 more undead like the hundreds out there. But what about 2 undead werewolves? Have you ever considered the possibility?" The necromancer, intrigued by this novel idea, commanded the death golem to halt its advance. He pondered the notion with a twisted fascination. Intriguing indeed. The thought of undead werewolves. Is such a thing even possible? He mused aloud. The prospect seemed too tempting for him to resist. As he contemplated, he spoke of the moon's cycle and how long they had until Lucas and Elara's transformation. Sensing a unique opportunity to experiment, the necromancer decided to secure them even more tightly, adding additional layers of bondage. "I know you think you have bought yourselves time to escape," he said with a sardonic smile, "but let me reassure you, there is none." Lucas and Elara, now even more securely bound, exchanged worried glances. The temporary reprieve had given them a moment to breathe, but their situation had grown increasingly perilous. Yet, within the heart of danger, they remained undeterred. They knew they had to use every moment wisely. Lucas tested the strength of their new restraints, looking for any weakness, any give that they could exploit. Elara, meanwhile, racked her brain for a plan. The necromancer's curiosity about undead werewolves had bought them time, but it was a double-edged sword. They needed to act before the moon's rise, or they would become the necromancer's most formidable and unwilling subjects. The room, filled with the necromancer's grotesque experiments, might hold something they could use to their advantage. Lucas and Elara, despite their dire circumstances, were not ones to give up hope. The necromancer, absorbed in his dark thoughts and twisted anticipation of the night's events, failed to see the determined resolve in his captive's eyes. Lucas and Elara, bound and facing an uncertain fate, were planning their next move, ready to fight back against the darkness that threatened to consume them. Chapter 7. A plan against the darkness. In the dim, damp cell of the asylum, Lucas and Elara contemplated their grim situation. As they awaited the rise of the moon, Lucas remarked, "Well, at least there aren't any ghosts. Zephyr mentioned spirits, right?" "That's a good point. Where are the spirits?" Elara pondered. The necromancer must be containing them, or using them as a source of power to control the undead and that thing in the lab. She continued, piecing the puzzle together, which means there must be a spirit trap or something similar. Lucas recalled the necromancer's actions in the laboratory. He kept returning to that machine. That's got to be it. Elara outlined their plan. Lucas would try to hold off the death golem, while she would attempt to release the spirits from the trap. It's our best shot at weakening the necromancer's control. Wait, I've got to fight that thing, Lucas said, concern evident in his voice. Even in wolf form, that thing is twice my size and strength, and it can control the undead. Not if we remove its power source, Elara replied confidently. As the night of the full moon arrived, the necromancer, eager to witness their transformation, brought Lucas and Elara back to the laboratory. The air was thick with anticipation and the scent of impending violence. The necromancer addressed them with a smirk. It's pointless to hope your wolf power will save you. You are no match for my death golem, and even if you were, my powers far exceed all of yours. Lucas and Elara exchanged a determined look. As the moon's rays began to filter through the windows, their transformation commenced. The power of the werewolf surged within them, but they knew brute strength alone wouldn't be enough to overcome the necromancer and his creation. The laboratory was a frenzy of activity. The necromancer watched, his eyes alight with cruel excitement, as Lucas, now in full werewolf form, squared off against the hulking death golem. Meanwhile, Elara, her own transformation complete, darted toward the machine that she suspected to be the spirit trap. The battle was fierce. Lucas, using all his agility and ferocity, engaged the death golem, all attempting to keep it at bay. Elara, working frantically, tried to decipher the workings of the machine. As Lucas grappled with the golem, Elara found the mechanism she was looking for. With a surge of effort, she managed to release the trap, freeing the spirits contained within. The spirits, now liberated, swirled around the laboratory in a whirlwind of ethereal energy. The necromancer, caught off guard by this turn of events, struggled to maintain control. The balance of power began to shift. The undead, previously under the necromancer's command, started to falter, their movements becoming erratic. The death golem too seemed to lose some of its unholy strength. Seizing the moment, Lucas redoubled his attack on the golem, while Elara confronted the necromancer. The spirits, free from their bondage, swirled around the room, adding to the chaos. In a climactic battle of wills, strength, and spirit, Lucas and Elara fought to end the necromancer's reign of terror. The fate of the Asylum, its tormented souls, and their own lives hung in the balance. The night of the full moon had become a showdown between the living, the undead, and the supernatural. A fight for freedom and peace. Chapter 8. The Necromancer's Undoing. The necromancer, undeterred by the chaos unraveling his plans, smirked confidently at Lucas and Elara. Well played, he conceded, but his smile was one of arrogance rather than defeat. I don't need the undead to finish you. With a swift motion of his hand, an invisible force slammed Lucas and Elara against the wall, pinning them helplessly. This is the end, the necromancer declared, preparing to deliver the final blow. But just then, the main door to the laboratory burst open. The horde of undead, no longer under the necromancer's control, charged into the room. They rampaged through the laboratory, smashing equipment and attacking the death golem, which had lost its power without the necromancer's control. The necromancer, realizing the tide had turned, exclaimed in panic, "No!" He tried to fend off the undead with his powers, sending bodies flying across the room. However, the spirits, recently liberated from the spirit trap, swirled around his head, dizzying and confusing him, disrupting his concentration and his magic. The undead overwhelmed him, a poetic justice as the creator was devoured by his own creations. Lucas and Elara, freed from the necromancer's grasp, climbed to the next floor, seeking refuge from the tumultuous scene below. From their vantage point, they witnessed the demise of the necromancer and his death golem, engulfed by the very beings they had manipulated and controlled. It was a fitting end to their reign of terror, defeated by the consequences of their own dark ambitions. As the chaos subsided, the bodies of the undead began to drop lifelessly to the floor. One by one, their spirits were released, finally free from the necromancer's vile influence. The souls, no longer bound to their earthly remains, drifted away, finding the peace they had been denied for so long. Lucas and Elara looked on, a mix of relief and solemnity in their eyes. They had faced one of their most formidable foes and emerged victorious. The Asylum, once a place of suffering and despair, was now quiet, its halls echoing with the whispers of departing souls. As they made their way out of the Asylum, the first light of dawn began to break through the darkness. They had brought peace to the troubled spirits and put an end to the necromancer's gruesome experiments. Their journey together, a fight against darkness and for the voiceless, continued onward, bound by their unyielding spirit and their commitment to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Final chapter. A new call to action. As Lucas and Elara drove away from the Asylum, the early morning light casting a serene glow over the landscape, Elara's phone buzzed with an incoming message. She glanced at the screen, her expression turning serious. It was a message from Maya, the female werewolf they had helped escape from her captivity. The message was brief but urgent. A cult of werewolves, rounding up Lycan and forcing them to serve. You must help. Lucas, noticing the change in Elara's demeanor. What is it? Elara relayed the message to him. It's from Maya. She stumbled onto something big. A cult that's capturing werewolves. Lucas's grip on the steering wheel tightened. A cult of werewolves, huh? Sounds like we're not done yet. The message marked the beginning of a new chapter in their ongoing battle against the forces of darkness. The cult of the Silver Moon, as Maya referred to them, seemed to be a formidable and sinister group with a dangerous agenda. As they drove, Lucas and Elara discussed their next steps. They needed to find out more about this cult, their motives, and their whereabouts. The safety and freedom of their fellow Lycans were at stake. This could be one of our toughest challenges yet, Lucas said, determination in his voice. Elara nodded in agreement. We've faced tough challenges before. We'll get to the bottom of this and put a stop to their plans. Their journey had taken them from haunted towns to asylums, and now to the lair of a werewolf cult. Lucas and Elara, bound by their commitment to justice and their unbreakable bond, were ready to face this new adversary head on. The cult of the Silver Moon would soon learn that Lucas and Elara were a force to be reckoned with, protectors of the innocent and defenders against tyranny. Their journey continued, each new challenge a testament to their courage and resilience in the face of darkness. The road ahead was uncertain, but they were prepared for whatever lay in wait, united in their mission and unyielding in their pursuit of justice. In the shadows of a world hidden from view, where the line between human and supernatural blurs, emerges a tale of two unlikely heroes. Welcome to the extraordinary saga of Lucas and Elara, werewolves bound not just by their shared nature, but by a relentless quest for justice. Every episode unravels a new chapter in their ongoing battle against the corrupt and the cruel. From the depths of the occult to the heights of corporate towers, they move in silence, striking where least expected. Their mission, to save the innocent and expose the malevolent. Armed with their wits, supernatural abilities, and a bond unbroken by adversity, they face adversaries both human and beyond. In a world where the prey can turn predator and the hunter becomes the hunted, Lucas and Elara navigate the grey areas of morality, justice, and loyalty. Join us as we delve into the heart of darkness, where danger lurks in every corner and courage is the only light. This is not just a journey through the night, it's a quest to bring balance to a world veiled in secrecy and rife with hidden threats. Get ready to enter a realm where myths come alive and heroes are born under the light of the moon. This is the world of Lucas and Elara. This is Lunar Shadows, the Chronicles of Lucas and Elara. Chapter 1. The Trail to the Cult of the Silver Moon. In the dimly lit interior of their vehicle, Lucas and Elara were deep in conversation, the events of their previous adventures still fresh in their minds. Their phones chimed, signaling another message from Maya. Elara opened the message, her brow furrowing as she read aloud. It's Maya. She's found more information about the Cult of the Silver Moon. She says a group of werewolves is forcing other werewolves to join them. It's not just manipulation, it's coercion. Lucas let out a low growl, his eyes narrowing. A cult of werewolves, huh? Going up against our kind, that's going to be tough. Especially if they're numerous, and we're just two. Elara nodded, her expression resolute. But if they're forcing others, we can't just stand by. Werewolves value freedom, Lucas. Whatever this cult is doing, it goes against everything we stand for. Lucas sighed, leaning back in his seat. I know. It's just going up against a cult, especially one of our own kind. It's risky. Cults can be fanatical, and if they're using supernatural law to control their members, who knows what we're walking into? Elara reached over, placing a hand on his. We've faced risks before. We'll do our reconnaissance, figure out their numbers, their strengths. We're not going in blind. Maya's intel will help. Lucas looked over at her, his eyes reflecting a mix of concern and admiration. All right, but we do this smart. We find out what we're dealing with first. We can't just rush in. Elara agreed. Absolutely. We'll start by gathering more information. Maybe try to find some of their ex-members. They could give us insights into the cult's inner workings. The drive continued in thoughtful silence as they headed towards the location Maya had provided. The Cult of the Silver Moon was their next challenge, a group shrouded in mystery and danger. Lucas and Elara knew they were walking a fine line, but their determination to free the manipulated and bring down the cult's leadership was unwavering. As they neared their destination, the weight of their new mission settled upon them. They were about to infiltrate a cult that not only used supernatural law to control its followers, but also comprised their fellow werewolves. It was a mission that would test their strength, cunning, and resolve to the fullest. Chapter 2. Seeking allies in the shadows. Under the cover of darkness, Lucas and Elara approached the base of the Cult of the Silver Moon, moving with practiced stealth. From a concealed vantage point, they observed the layout of the cult's stronghold. The perimeter was heavily guarded, with over 10 guards patrolling the area. Additionally, they spotted 3 men who appeared to be in charge, exuding an air of authority. Lucas whispered, "There's no way we can take them all on. If they're all werewolves, or even half of them, we'd be outnumbered and outmatched." Elara nodded in agreement. "We need help. This is too big for just the two of us." She quickly sent a message to Clara, the journalist friend of Eldridge, the ancient vampire, seeking his aid. A few hours later, as they huddled in their hiding spot, a message came through. "He's coming," Clara had written. Before Elara could finish her sentence, a voice emerged from the shadows. "Good evening," Eldridge said, materializing beside them. Lucas jumped, startled. "How did you get here so fast?" Eldridge gave a small, enigmatic smile. "Ah, I see my powers impress you. I do not merely clamber around. I can move from shadow to shadow, travel anywhere in the dark. It's almost instant." "Now how can I help my favorite furry friends?" Eldridge inquired, his tone light, but his eyes serious. Elara quickly briefed him on the situation, outlining the strength and organization of the cult. Eldridge listened intently, his expression growing thoughtful. "That's a lot of wolves," he mused. "We need an edge. I know just the thing, but it may take some time to acquire. I have a contact in the Cult of the Night. He's a stubborn one, but does possess some interesting trinkets. Give me some time to bargain with him." In the meantime, Lucas and Elara were alone in their quest to take down the Cult of the Silver Moon. With Eldridge off to secure whatever advantage he could find, they needed to plan their next move carefully. "We'll have to proceed cautiously," Lucas said, his mind racing with strategies. "We can't take on the cult head-on, but maybe we can find a way to weaken them from the inside." Elara nodded. "We'll start by gathering more intel. We need to understand their hierarchy, their rituals, anything that can give us an opening." With their resolve strengthened and a powerful ally in Eldridge, Lucas and Elara prepared to infiltrate the cult. The night was still young, and the moon hung high in the sky, casting its silver light over the scene. The cult of the Silver Moon was about to face two determined werewolves, ready to challenge their reign and free those under their control. The fight for freedom and justice had just begun. Chapter 3. The Cult's Dark Secret. Under the cloak of night, Elara set out her plan. She would venture into the cult camp, posing as a lone lichen seeking refuge. Her story was that she had heard of the cult of the Silver Moon and their protection of their kind. She yearned to join a family, a pack that would embrace and protect her. With a mix of apprehension and determination, Elara approached the cult's stronghold. She was greeted with suspicion at first, but her tale of seeking a pack to belong to resonated with some of the cult members, and they allowed her entry. As she mingled with the members, Elara discovered that the cult was indeed a formidable force, bound by a strong belief in their leader's supremacy. Whispers among the members revealed that the leader was not just any werewolf. He was a super werewolf, possessing the strength of 10 of his kind. "You're safe with us," one member assured her. "Our leader will protect you from the outside world. Under his guidance, we are invincible." That night, as Elara lay in her makeshift bed within the cult, a chilling scream pierced the silence. Moving quietly, she sneaked out to investigate. From the shadows, she spied on the cult leader, witnessing a scene that sent shivers down her spine. The leader, a commanding figure with a fierce presence, was in the process of absorbing power from another man. The man, a werewolf in his human form, writhed in agony as his strength was siphoned away. The moon wasn't full, so he couldn't transform to defend himself. Elara overheard a conversation that revealed the source of the cult leader's power, a unique amulet that absorbed the power of lichens, transferring and amplifying it to the wearer. The cult leader, whom they called Fenric, had grown unnaturally powerful through this dark method, accumulating the strength of every lichen he subdued. Elara realized the enormity of the threat Fenric posed, not just to her and Lucas, but to all werewolves. His ability to strip them of their power and add it to his own made him a predator among predators. Quietly, Elara retreated to her quarters, her mind racing with this new information. She needed to get word to Lucas and Eldridge about Fenric's amulet and the true nature of his strength. The cult was not just a group of werewolves seeking kinship. It was a trap, with Fenric preying on his own kind. As the first light of dawn crept into the sky, Elara knew that the mission had taken a more dangerous turn. They were up against a foe unlike any they had faced before, and the stakes had never been higher. She prepared to send a message to Lucas, detailing her findings and the urgent need for a plan to stop Fenric and his reign of terror. The battle against the cult of the Silver Moon had just become a fight for the survival of their kind. Chapter 4. Captured in the cult camp. Elara's attempt to sneak out of the cult camp and rendezvous with Lucas was thwarted as she was caught by one of Fenric's guards. Trying to think quickly, she explained, "I just wanted to get some fresh air. I'm not used to being cooped up." The guard was skeptical. "We'll let Fenric decide," he said, escorting her to stand before the imposing cult leader. Confronted by Fenric, Elara knew she had to tread carefully. His gaze was piercing, and his demeanor exuded both charisma and threat. "You join us. Then you want to leave us? Which is it?" Fenric questioned, his voice laced with suspicion. Elara tried to concoct a cover story, but Fenric was not easily deceived. He cut through her words, emphasizing the importance of the pack. "In this family, we stick together. The needs of the many come before the needs of the individual. You must understand that if you wish to be part of us." Elara could see Fenric's amulet, the source of his formidable power, securely fastened around his neck. It seemed impossible to steal or break without being noticed. "Fortunately for you, I have already fed," Fenric said with a chilling calmness. "But my hunger will return soon, and then I will call for you." The implication was clear. He intended to absorb her lichen power next. Elara was then locked in a cage with two other members, a man and a woman who looked defeated and wary. As she sat there, she mumbled to herself, "Please not the front door, Lucas." She feared that Lucas might attempt a direct and potentially disastrous rescue. She knew that confronting Fenric head-on, especially with his amplified powers, would be a dangerous gamble. As the hours passed, Elara kept a vigilant eye on the activity in the camp, looking for any opportunity or weakness they could exploit. She quietly spoke with her fellow captives, gathering information and formulating a plan. The situation was dire, but Elara held on to hope. She knew Lucas and Eldridge were out there, possibly devising their own strategy to dismantle the cult and rescue her. Time was running out, and the stakes were higher than ever. The showdown with Fenric and his cult was imminent, and Elara prepared herself for whatever was to come. Chapter 5. The Clash of Beasts. Elara, confined within the cell, perked up at the sound of a familiar howl piercing the night. "I know that howl," she said softly, a mixture of worry and recognition in her voice. "But the moon isn't due for another week." The cult camp erupted into chaos, members scrambling in all directions. The howl echoed once more, this time unmistakably from the front entrance. "I knew it," Elara muttered to herself, a note of frustration in her voice. From the shadows of the cell, a voice spoke. He insisted. Eldridge emerged, his presence bringing a sliver of hope. Elara quickly explained their predicament. Eldridge's brows furrowed in concern. Oh, that amulet could be a problem. I managed to secure the reverse moonstone from the cult of the night at great cost, but I have no idea how it will work against that amulet. Even I have never encountered such a thing. Suddenly, the front entrance of the camp came into view, and there stood Lucas in his full werewolf form. How? Elara gasped in surprise. Oh, he has some torch strapped to his back and turned on, Eldridge casually replied. The cult members, now in a state of utter panic, screamed, "A Lycan who can change at will! It's unheard of!" The myth of a werewolf with such ability added to the terror already gripping the camp. Lucas, empowered by his transformation, began advancing towards Elara's cage. But before he could reach her, Fenric confronted him. In his human form, Fenric appeared less threatening. Lucas, sensing the advantage, prepared to attack. Then Fenric touched his amulet, and his body began to transform into his superwolf form. Towering over Lucas, Fenric let out a deep, primal roar, sending a shudder through the camp. When Lucas lunged, Fenric swatted him aside effortlessly. "Oh dear," Eldridge murmured, watching anxiously. "I can't use the stone. It will reverse Lucas as well." Fenric, now in his monstrous wolf form, picked up Lucas with one hand and threw him to the ground. The sound of breaking glass and a flicker of light indicated the moon torch had been destroyed, and Lucas began to revert to his human form. Seizing the moment, Fenric scooped up the weakened Lucas and tossed him into the cage with Elara and the others. Fenric then touched the amulet again, reverting to his human form. "Soon, we will be ready for all of you," Fenric declared. "I need to prepare for such an undertaking." Elara and Lucas exchanged glances, both realizing the direness of their situation. Eldridge, observing silently from the shadows, contemplated his next move. Fenric's amulet made him a formidable foe, and they needed to find a way to counter its power. As the night wore on, they prepared for the inevitable confrontation, knowing that the fate of many hung in the balance. The cult of the Silver Moon had never faced opponents like Lucas, Elara, and Eldridge, and they were not about to give up without a fight. Chapter 6. The Final Confrontation. "Eldridge, just shadow them," Lucas urged, eyeing the vampire with a mix of hope and desperation. Eldridge shook his head slightly. "It doesn't work so well on you Lycans," he said. "You seem to have a resistance to my attacks. Haven't you heard the tales of Lycan versus vampires? We rarely come out on top." Elara, her mind racing with strategies, interjected, "Give me that stone." She had been observing Fenric closely. "I saw how he absorbs the power. You have to be close, and he will be in human form. I can use it against his amulet right at the time of absorption." Lucas voiced his concern, worry evident in his voice. "That's too close. And how do you know he'll pick you first?" "I'll make him," Elara stated firmly, her resolve clear. Time passed, and the moment for the ceremony of absorption arrived. Fenric, away from the camp with 2 guards to avoid alarming his cult, intended to absorb all 4 of the Lycans in the cages. Elara, seizing the opportunity, demanded him to go first, pleading for Fenric's mercy to spare her from watching Lucas be absorbed. "I will go freely," she offered, feigning defeat. Fenric, feeling a surge of superiority, agreed to her request. The absorption process began, but as Fenric raised his arms, exposing the amulet, Elara made her move. With a swift, decisive motion, she smashed the reverse moonstone into the amulet. A blinding light erupted from the collision, the stone and the amulet effectively cancelling each other out and rendering both useless. In the chaos, Eldridge emerged from the shadows, freeing Lucas and the other two captives from their bonds. Lucas, now free, lunged at Fenric. The ensuing battle was intense, but grounded in human form. Lucas, an expert in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, used his skills to control Fenric, countering the cult leader's size and strength advantage. He maneuvered into a position to secure a back control, then sank in a rear chokehold. Meanwhile, Elara, Eldridge, and the two other captives managed to subdue Fenric's guards. The cult members, witnessing the fall of their leader and the breakdown of his power, were thrown into disarray. Fenric, overwhelmed by Lucas's technique and strength, began to lose consciousness. The chokehold was unrelenting, and soon he lay motionless, defeated but alive. The cult of the Silver Moon, with its leader incapacitated and its power source destroyed, was effectively dismantled. The werewolves, who had been coerced into joining the cult, were now free from Fenric's manipulation. As the sun began to rise, casting a new light on the once menacing camp, Lucas, Elara, Eldri, and the freed werewolves looked on at the dawn of a new day. They had faced an enemy unlike any other and emerged victorious. Their journey had been fraught with danger, but together they had overcome the odds. The bond between Lucas and Elara, tested and strengthened through their battles, was unbreakable, and as they stood amidst the remnants of the cult, they knew their fight against darkness would continue, always ready to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Final chapter. A new alliance. As the dust settled in the aftermath of their confrontation with Fenric, the two captives introduced themselves. The man, with a rugged demeanor, was named Calder, and the woman, possessing a quiet strength, was called Celine. They both shared stories of joining the cult of the Silver Moon, believing it would offer them protection and kinship. Lucas, in a lighter moment, amidst the intensity of their situation, picked up Fenric's now defunct amulet and placed it around his neck. "Isn't that broken?" Elara asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, but I like the colour," Lucas quipped, trying to bring a bit of levity to the moment. Eldridge, ever the enigmatic figure, interjected, "I must return this reverse moonstone to the cult of the night." With a nod to Lucas and Elara, he disappeared into the shadows, his mission accomplished. Calder and Celine, grateful for their freedom, explained that they had originally joined the cult in hopes of finding help for a cause they were deeply involved in, a rebellion against an oppressive regime in a dystopian city. They spoke passionately about rebellion in the underground, detailing how they were part of a group of rebels fighting to overthrow the tyrants who controlled their city. Their story resonated with Lucas and Elara, who had always stood up against tyranny and injustice. The couple exchanged a look, a silent communication that spoke volumes. "We'll join you," Elara said firmly. "We can't stand by while others suffer under oppression." Calder and Celine's eyes lit up with hope and gratitude. Lucas added, "Count us in. We're ready to help lead this uprising. It's time for the tyrants to fall." As they prepared to depart from the dismantled cult camp, the dawn of a new challenge was upon them. Lucas and Elara, along with their new allies Calder and Celine, were set to embark on a journey into the heart of a dystopian city, ready to ignite the flames of rebellion. The cult of the Silver Moon was behind them, but their fight against darkness continued. They were a team now, united by a common goal, to bring freedom to those oppressed by tyranny. Their next adventure, rebellion in the underground, awaited them. With determination and courage, Lucas and Elara were ready to plunge into this new battle, standing as beacons of hope against the shadows of an oppressive regime. The journey of the two werewolves was far from over. It was just entering a new chapter, one filled with the promise of change and the fire of rebellion. In the shadows of a world hidden from view, where the line between human and supernatural blurs, emerges a tale of two unlikely heroes. Welcome to the extraordinary saga of Lucas and Elara, werewolves bound not just by their shared nature, but by a relentless quest for justice. Every episode unravels a new chapter in their ongoing battle against the corrupt and the cruel. From the depths of the occult to the heights of corporate towers, they move in silence, striking where least expected. Their mission: to save the innocent and expose the malevolent. Armed with their wits, supernatural abilities, and a bond unbroken by adversity, they face adversaries both human and beyond. In a world where the prey can turn predator and the hunter becomes the hunted, Lucas and Elara navigate the grey areas of morality, justice, and loyalty. Join us as we delve into the heart of darkness, where danger lurks in every corner and courage is the only light. This is not just a journey through the night, it's a quest to bring balance to a world veiled in secrecy and rife with hidden threats. Get ready to enter a realm where myths come alive and heroes are born under the light of the moon. This is the world of Lucas and Elara. This is Lunar Shadows, the chronicles of Lucas and Elara. Chapter 1. Into the Heart of Dystopia. Lucas and Elara, accompanied by Calder and Celine, entered the dystopian city under the cloak of twilight. The city, once a beacon of progress, had transformed into a shadow of its former glory. Skyscrapers, which used to touch the sky with glass and steel, now stood as hollowed remnants, their facades crumbling. The streets were filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional patrol of the regime's enforcers. As they moved stealthily through the desolate cityscape, Celine briefed them on the tyrant who controlled the city. His name is Mordecai, a being of immense power and cruelty. He's not just a tyrant, he's something far more dangerous, a dark sorcerer with the ability to manipulate shadows and minds. Lucas frowned, taking in the gravity of the situation. A sorcerer? That complicates things. Elara nodded, her eyes scanning the surroundings. We've dealt with powerful foes before. What's important is understanding how he's oppressing the city. Calder chimed in. Mordecai uses his powers to instill fear. He can invade thoughts, turn people against each other, and worst of all, he can control the shadows themselves. The people are not just under physical tyranny, they're imprisoned in their own minds. As they delved deeper into the heart of the city, the signs of oppression were unmistakable. Propaganda posters depicting Mordecai's menacing visage adorned the walls, and downtrodden citizens moved about with a sense of hopelessness. The once vibrant city life had been reduced to a mere struggle for survival under Mordecai's iron-fisted rule. The rebel group led Lucas and Elara to their hideout, a hidden sanctuary in the skeleton of an old building. Here, a network of rebels, each with their story of defiance, had gathered under the common goal of overthrowing Mordecai. Lucas and Elara, now in the heart of the resistance, felt a renewed sense of purpose. The fight against the cult of the Silver Moon had brought them here, but their battle for freedom and justice was far from over. As they sat with the rebels, planning their next move, the weight of their mission settled upon them. They were not just fighting a tyrant, they were battling a force that had ensnared the very essence of the city and its people. The plan was daring and fraught with danger, but Lucas and Elara were no strangers to adversity. Alongside the rebels, they prepared to ignite an uprising against Mordecai, to free the city from its shadowy chains. The story of a rebellion had begun, and Lucas and Elara were at its forefront, ready to lead the charge into the darkness, to bring light back to the city, oppressed by supernatural tyranny. Chapter 2. The Tale of Mordecai's Rise. In the dimly lit hideout of the rebels, Lucas and Elara were introduced to the leader of the resistance, a stern yet charismatic figure named Idris. Idris, one of the few who had ever escaped Mordecai's clutches, carried a presence of both strength and wisdom. As they gathered around an old, worn table, Idris began to explain the gravity of their situation. Mordecai is not just a tyrant. He's a master of the darkest arts, shadow manipulation and mind control. He's a sorcerer whose power is unlike anything we've ever seen. Lucas and Elara listened intently as Idris detailed Mordecai's abilities. His shadows can materialize into physical forms, attack, and even spy on us. His mind control can turn friends into foes, making trust a rare commodity in this city. Idris then took them back to the time when Mordecai was still consolidating his power. Mordecai was once an advisor to the council here, but his ambition and lust for power led him down a dark path. He delved into forbidden rituals, seeking knowledge and power from ancient, malevolent sources. The story took them to a night shrouded in secrecy, where Mordecai had conducted a dark ritual that would forever change the fate of the city. In the ruins of an ancient temple, under a blood-red moon, Mordecai had chanted incantations that resonated with an eerie, otherworldly power. As the ritual reached its climax, shadows writhed and twisted around him, and a surge of dark energy coursed through the temple. Mordecai emerged from that night transformed, his eyes glowing with a sinister light, his aura radiating malevolence. From that day on, Mordecai was no longer human, Idris concluded, his voice tinged with sorrow. He became a vessel for dark forces, and the city fell under his shadow. Elara, her expression grave, asked, "How do you fight someone like that?" Idris leaned forward, determination in his eyes. "With courage, strategy, and allies like you. Mordecai's power is formidable, but he is not invincible. We've been working to find a way to counter his shadow manipulation, and now, with your help, we stand a chance." The meeting ended with a new resolve forming among the rebels. Lucas and Elara knew the fight ahead would be unlike any other. They were not just battling a tyrant, they were facing a force that threatened the very essence of humanity. As they left the meeting, the weight of their mission heavy on their shoulders, Lucas and Elara prepared for the battle ahead. The fight to reclaim the city from Mordecai's grasp had just begun, and they were at the forefront. Chapter 3. Shadows and Plans. While Lucas and Elara were deep in discussion with the rebels inside the dimly lit hideout, a sudden chill swept through the room. A shadowy figure materialized near the entrance, its form barely distinguishable against the darkness. One of the rebels spotted it and shouted, "They found us!" But as quickly as it appeared, the shadowy figure vanished into the darkness, leaving a sense of foreboding in its wake. Idris, his expression grim, addressed the group. "We must act with urgency. Now that Mordecai knows where we are, he won't hesitate to attack the minds of his people. He's been using shadows to spy on us." Lucas and Elara exchanged a worried glance. "What can we do against Mordecai? Werewolves are useless against mind control," Lucas pointed out. Idris nodded thoughtfully. "Indeed, but you may well be our greatest hope. Mordecai's mind control might not work on a beast, no offense. When in your werewolf form, your primal instincts might give you an edge against his manipulation." The revelation brought a new perspective to their strategy. Lucas and Elara, with their unique abilities, could play a crucial role in countering Mordecai's mind control tactics. Idris then outlined a plan to deal with Mordecai's shadow powers. We've been working on a device, a sort of electromagnetic pulse emitter. It disrupts shadow energy, making it momentarily tangible. If we can get it close enough to Mordecai during the pulse, we might be able to neutralize his shadow manipulation temporarily. Elara nodded. That could give us the opening we need. We can use that moment to launch a direct attack. The group gathered around a makeshift table, spreading out maps of the city and marking key locations. The plan was daring, requiring precise timing and coordination. They would need to infiltrate Mordecai's stronghold, deploy the device to disrupt his shadow powers, and then launch an all-out assault. As the meeting concluded, Lucas and Elara knew the stakes were higher than ever. The fate of the city and its people rested on the success of their mission. They were up against a foe unlike any they had faced, but they were not without their own strengths and allies. The rebellion was about to reach its climax, and Lucas and Elara were ready to lead the charge. With their newfound knowledge of Mordecai's weaknesses and the rebels' plan, they were poised to strike a blow against the tyrant and free the city from his dark grip. The battle for freedom was about to begin. Chapter 4. The Moonlit Assault. Under the looming shadow of the approaching full moon, Lucas, Elara, Calder, and Celine prepared for their assault on Mordecai's lair. All four, being werewolves, felt the impending pull of the lunar cycle. The tension in the air was palpable as they readied themselves for what might be their most dangerous mission yet. Let's hope his mind control can't reach the beast in us, or we're going to end up fighting each other, Lucas said, checking over his gear. The possibility of falling under Mordecai's spell was a risk they all acknowledged. We need to move now, so we're in position when the moon is full, Elara added, her voice laced with urgency. Timing was critical. They had to strike at the moment of their greatest strength. As the team moved out towards Mordecai's stronghold, the city's oppressive atmosphere weighed heavily upon them. Upon arriving, they observed shadowy figures patrolling the area around the lair. These were not ordinary guards. They were manifestations of Mordecai's dark sorcery. We can't fight them, Calder stated grimly, observing the shadow figures. We've tried before and failed. That's why we sought help from the cult initially. The shadows were elusive and intangible, impossible to attack, yet they posed a significant threat, capable of striking at will. The team realized that confronting these shadows head-on would be futile. We need Idris's shadow zapper before we can make a move, Celine pointed out. Let's hope it coincides with the full moon, or we'll miss our window of opportunity. The team took up positions near the stronghold, staying out of sight of the patrolling shadows. The tension rose as the moon climbed higher in the sky, its silvery light a harbinger of their impending transformation. Lucas and Elara communicated silently, a mutual understanding and trust between them. They knew the risk of engaging the enemy before disabling the shadows was too great. The success of their mission hinged on the timely arrival of Idris with the device. As the minutes ticked by, the team waited in anticipation, each member mentally preparing for the battle ahead. They knew that once the moon reached its peak, and they transformed, there would be no turning back. The fate of the city and its oppressed inhabitants rested on their shoulders. The night air was charged with potential energy, the city holding its breath for the impending confrontation. The battle against Mordecai and his dark forces was about to begin, and Lucas, Elara, Calder, and Celine were at the heart of it, ready to fight for freedom and justice. Chapter 5. The Moonlit Battle. As the moon reached its zenith, casting its full luminescent glow upon the city, all four members of the team, Lucas, Elara, Calder, and Celine, underwent their transformation into wolves. The change was swift and powerful, their bodies reshaping into the formidable forms of their lichened selves. Lucas let out a primal howl, soon joined by the others, their voices harmonizing in a chorus that resonated through the night. Alerted by the howls, the shadow figures patrolling Mordecai's stronghold turned their attention toward the team. Like dark wraiths, they moved swiftly towards the werewolves, ready to engage. Lucas, Elara, Calder, and Celine maneuvered through the shadows with supernatural agility, dodging the elusive attacks of their enemies. However, in the midst of the chaos, Celine was caught off guard. The shadows swarmed over her, their dark energy pulsing as they overwhelmed her. Calder, driven by concern, attempted to aid her, but found himself equally incapable of harming the intangible shadows, while also being vulnerable to their dark assaults. Elara, seeing the peril they were in, motioned to Lucas to keep moving forward. They had to reach Mordecai, and time then was of the essence. Lucas hesitated for a moment, torn between helping his comrades and pursuing their primary objective, but ultimately followed Elara's lead. As they advanced, a formidable army of shadow people materialized in front of them, blocking their path. Lucas and Elara skidded to a halt, facing what seemed an insurmountable barrier, their natural weapons useless against these spectral adversaries. Just when the situation appeared hopeless, a beam of purple light burst onto the scene, engulfing the area. It was Idris's shadow-disrupting device in action. The shadow people began to lose their coherence, their forms flickering and gradually vanishing under the influence of the device. Calder and Celine, now free from their assailants, rejoined Lucas and Elara. Idris emerged from the shadows, holding the device, his expression one of determination. With the path cleared of the shadowy threats, the team regrouped, preparing for the final assault on Mordecai's stronghold. The combined might of the werewolves, coupled with Idris's technological advantage, gave them a fighting chance. As they advanced towards the heart of the lair, the stakes were higher than ever. Mordecai, the master of shadows and manipulator of minds, awaited them. The team steeled themselves for the confrontation, knowing that the fate of the city and its oppressed inhabitants hung in the balance. It was time to face the tyrant, to end his reign of terror, and to free the city from his dark grasp. The battle for liberation was about to reach its climax. Chapter 6. The Showdown and the Setback. The full moon illuminated the night sky as the four Lycans, led by Lucas, burst through the entrance of Mordecai's lair, ready for the final confrontation. Idris, wary of becoming a victim to Mordecai's mind control, remained outside with his shadow-disrupting device at the ready. Inside, they found Mordecai seated nonchalantly on a throne-like chair, an air of boredom about him. "About time," he taunted. "I thought you would have been stronger." Without a moment's hesitation, Lucas lunged at Mordecai, his primal instincts fully ignited. But just as he was about to strike, Mordecai shifted into a shadow form, and Lucas passed right through him. Mordecai reappeared in his physical form, a smirk on his face. He struck Lucas with a forceful blow, his arm wreathed in shadowy energy. Lucas was sent flying across the room, hitting the wall hard and falling incapacitated. Calder and Celine, seeing their leader down, attacked simultaneously from both sides. However, Mordecai effortlessly repelled their assault, flinging them aside with deadly force. They landed unconscious, leaving Elara the only one standing. Mordecai laughed mockingly. Pathetic. At that critical moment, Idris burst in, holding the shadow-disrupting device aimed at Mordecai. The beam hit the dark sorcerer, causing him visible pain. Elara, seized the opportunity. She lunged at Mordecai, striking him with all her might. He stumbled backward, bloodied and bruised, but instead of surrendering, he began to laugh maniacally. Lucas, regaining consciousness, rejoined Elara at her side. "You can help now," Mordecai sneered. Suddenly, Vorath, the powerful magician from the Crimson Moon Casino, materialized in the room. "Time for some revenge," he declared. The odds seemed impossible. Mordecai's shadow powers, combined with Vorath's magical prowess, were overwhelming. Just as the rebels began storming the building, Vorath unleashed a blast that sent Elara and Lucas flying across the room. Mordecai used his powers to halt the advancing rebels, attempting to invade their minds. Idris aimed the shadow zapper at Mordecai, but before he could fire, the device exploded. Vorath, smiling triumphantly, had used his magic to destroy it. In the ensuing chaos, Mordecai and Vorath easily subdued the rebels and the remaining Lycans. Standing over Lucas and Elara, Mordecai began to gather his power for a final, deadly strike. However, Vorath intervened. "No, not yet. I want them to know how powerless, how helpless they are against us. Come, we still have work to do." With those words, they both disappeared, leaving a trail of malevolence in their wake. Lucas, Elara, and the rest of the team lay defeated and demoralized. The realization dawned on them that this might have been a setup by Vorath, a cruel game to punish them for their previous encounter. They were left battered, their spirits broken, as the tyrants vanished into the night. The battle was lost, but the war was far from over. Lucas and Elara, though defeated, knew they had to regroup, reassess, and find a new way to fight back. The fight for the city's freedom had taken a devastating turn, but they were not ready to give up. The fight against tyranny and darkness would continue, no matter the cost. Final chapter. A city freed and a new threat. In the aftermath of their harrowing battle, the city finally found a semblance of peace. Vorath and Mordecai had not returned, leaving Lucas, Elara, and the rebels to ponder the true motive behind the recent events. Gathered with the rebels in what now felt like a liberated city, Lucas and Elara shared their thoughts. "I think you're safe. I don't think they're coming back," Lucas said, though his voice carried a hint of uncertainty. "What just happened?" Idris asked, still trying to make sense of it all. "We got our butts kicked," Lucas admitted candidly. He and Elara then explained their previous encounter with Vorath, speculating that the entire assault might have been a setup aimed at getting back at them. Idris, contemplative, offered a different perspective. "We may have been defeated in battle, but we have our city back. That counts for something." His words brought a sense of solace amidst the uncertainty. The conversation then turned to something Mordecai had mentioned, a laboratory where he conducted cruel experiments. Idris believed this place could hold the key to understanding Mordecai's powers. If we can find this laboratory and uncover what happened there, we might be able to prepare for whatever Vorath has planned for us next. This new revelation led to their next mission, the Laboratory of Lost Horrors. In this secretive facility, it was rumored that creatures and humans were subjected to horrific trials, their suffering fueling the scientists' unethical practices. Determined to expose the truth and put an end to the cruelty, Lucas and Elara agreed to venture into this unknown horror. They hoped that infiltrating the laboratory would not only bring justice to those who had suffered there, but also shed light on what Vorath might have in store for them. As they prepared to leave, the rebels expressed their gratitude. The city, though scarred, was free from tyranny, and hope was slowly returning to its streets. Lucas and Elara, along with Idris and the rebels, knew that the fight against darkness was far from over, but for now, they had given the city a chance to heal and rebuild. The laboratory of lost horrors awaited them, a new chapter in their relentless fight against evil. As they set out, Lucas and Elara were ready to face whatever horrors lay within, standing as guardians against the cruelty that lurked in the shadows. Their journey continued, each new challenge a testament to their courage and unwavering spirit. In the shadows of a world hidden from view, where the line between human and supernatural blurs, emerges a tale of two unlikely heroes. Welcome to the extraordinary saga of Lucas and Elara, werewolves bound not just by their shared nature, but by a relentless quest for justice. Every episode unravels a new chapter in their ongoing battle against the corrupt and the cruel. From the depths of the occult to the heights of corporate towers, they move in silence, striking where least expected. Their mission: to save the innocent and expose the malevolent. Armed with their wits, supernatural abilities, and a bond unbroken by adversity, they face adversaries both human and beyond. In a world where the prey can turn predator and the hunter becomes the hunted, Lucas and Elara navigate the grey areas of morality, justice, and loyalty. Join us as we delve into the heart of darkness, where danger lurks in every corner and courage is the only light. This is not just a journey through the night, it's a quest to bring balance to a world veiled in secrecy and rife with hidden threats. Get ready to enter a realm where myths come alive and heroes are born under the light of the moon. This is the world of Lucas and Elara. This is Lunar Shadows, the chronicles of Lucas and Elara. Chapter 1. The Edge Against Evil. Lucas and Elara journeyed towards the secretive laboratory of lost horrors, their minds preoccupied with thoughts of their recent battle against Vorath and Mordecai. The memory of their defeat was still fresh, a harsh reminder of their vulnerability. As they travelled through the shadowed streets of the newly freed city, Lucas broke the silence. That last battle, we were completely overpowered. Vorath and Mordecai could have easily killed us, but it seemed like Vorath was just toying with us. Elara nodded, her expression somber. I've been thinking about that too. If we're going to face him again, we need an edge, something that can counter his power. Their conversation shifted to their new mission. Idris had briefed them about the laboratory of lost horrors, a place shrouded in secrecy where unspeakable experiments were conducted on both creatures and humans. According to Idris, the horrors that transpired within its walls were beyond imagination, and it was possible that this laboratory held secrets that could give them the advantage they desperately needed. Lucas's eyes hardened with resolve. Whatever is happening in that lab, it's not just about finding an edge against Vorath. It's about putting an end to the suffering of those innocent beings. Elara agreed. Idris mentioned that the lab might hold key information on the kind of dark science Mordecai was involved in. If we can uncover those secrets, we might just find a way to prevent tyrants like Vorath and Mordecai from gaining such power in the first place. As they neared the location, the grim reality of their mission set in. The lab was hidden in a secluded area, away from prying eyes, making it all the more ominous. Steeling themselves for what they were about to face, Lucas and Elara approached the laboratory of lost horrors with a mix of determination and apprehension. This mission was about more than just seeking an edge against their foes. It was a rescue operation for those who had no one else to turn to, and a quest to uncover truths that could change the course of their fight against darkness. The night air was heavy with the weight of their task as they prepared to enter the lab. Little did they know the secrets and challenges that lay within those walls would test their resolve like never before. The journey into the laboratory of lost horrors was about to begin, and Lucas and Elara were ready to face whatever horrors awaited them. Chapter 2. Unveiling hidden horrors. Perched in an advantageous spot, Lucas scanned the area through his binoculars. The structure before them looked like an abandoned laboratory, its exterior betraying no signs of the sinister activities that were rumored to take place within. "Looks abandoned," he muttered. Elara beside him nodded in agreement. "Stealth mission," she whispered, to which Lucas replied simply, "Yep." They both prepared for the infiltration, donning dark clothing and ensuring their gear was silent. Moving with practiced stealth, they approached the seemingly deserted laboratory. The silence around the building was eerie, adding a sense of foreboding to their mission. Once inside, they found themselves in a lab that appeared long forsaken. Dust-covered equipment and scattered papers were all that remained of what might once have been frantic scientific activity. They carefully searched the premises, but found nothing noteworthy, just remnants of abandoned experiments and a palpable sense of desolation. "Wonder if we got the wrong place, or if this is just a waste of time," Lucas pondered aloud, his voice echoing slightly in the empty space. But just as they were about to turn back, Elara noticed something unusual, a subtle distortion, almost like a heat haze along one of the walls. "Wait a sec," she said, her instincts kicking in. Approaching the anomaly, she realized it was some sort of illusion, a cleverly disguised entrance. Intrigued, Lucas joined her as they both ventured through the hidden passage, which led them down a series of deep, winding stairs. The air grew colder as they descended, the atmosphere thickening with a sense of impending discovery or danger. At the bottom of the stairs, they were met with a heavy, bolted door, locked from the outside. "We're going to have to pick it," Elara stated, examining the lock closely. Lucas observed the door's sturdy construction and the external bolts. "Looks like someone doesn't want what's inside getting out," he remarked, a hint of concern in his voice. Together, they worked on the lock, their senses heightened and prepared for whatever lay beyond the door. The laboratory of lost horrors was living up to its name, and they braced themselves for what they might uncover. This secret section of the lab, hidden from the world and locked away so securely, held the promise of dark secrets, and perhaps the key to understanding the sinister forces they were up against. The truth awaited them, just beyond the door. Chapter 3. The Horrors Within. Lucas and Elara cautiously stepped through the door into the dimly lit corridors of the laboratory. A chill ran down their spines as they heard the faint, almost imperceptible sound of something moving in the darkness. The air was thick with an ominous presence, making every step they took feel laden with danger. They proceeded with utmost caution, the only light coming from a small flashlight that Elara held. The narrow beam cast eerie shadows on the walls, amplifying the sense of dread. The corridors were lined with doors leading to various rooms, and from each they could hear unsettling noises, a testament to the horrors that lay within. As they moved deeper into the labyrinthine laboratory, the sounds seemed to follow them, an invisible entity tracking their every move. Random rooms they peered into revealed grotesque sights of old experiments, creatures with body parts sewn in the wrong places, some missing limbs, and others that looked like reanimated monsters out of a nightmare. The tension escalated when they suddenly heard a multitude of footsteps. Glancing behind, they saw a horrifying sight, a gathering of ghastly creatures, their forms distorted and unnatural, shambling towards them with a terrifying intent. Realizing the danger, Lucas and Elara turned and ran, their hearts pounding in their chests. The corridor turned into a nightmarish maze as they narrowly dodged the twisted beings that reached out to grab them. The air was filled with the sounds of their pursuers, a cacophony of groans and shuffling feet that seemed to close in on them from all sides. Finally, they spotted what looked like the main laboratory ahead, its entrance marked by 2 large doors. Without a second to spare, they burst through the doors and quickly bolted them shut behind them. The sudden silence was as jarring as the chaos they had just escaped. Panting and on high alert, they found themselves in the heart of the laboratory of lost horrors. The main lab was a vast room filled with equipment and tables, the walls lined with shelves of mysterious substances and arcane instruments. As they caught their breath, Lucas and Elara surveyed the room, knowing that they had just entered the very core of the dark secrets they sought to uncover. What lay within this room held the key to understanding the unimaginable experiments that had taken place in this forsaken place. The chapter closed with them standing in the eerie quiet of the lab, bracing themselves for the revelations that awaited them. The horrors they had witnessed were just the beginning, and they knew that what they would find here could change everything in their fight against darkness. Chapter 4. The Shadow's Secret. The pounding on the laboratory doors was relentless, the grotesque creatures outside trying desperately to break in. Elara, her back against the wall, said, "We're stuck. The moon won't reach us here, and that door is the only way in or out." Lucas scanned the laboratory, which was vast and filled with equipment that looked mostly untouched despite the chaos outside. Together, they began to search for clues amidst the detritus of abandoned experiments. Torn papers and shattered vials littered the floor, but nothing immediately stood out as significant. As they continued their search, suddenly the room was flooded with light. Lucas, standing near a wall panel with a satisfied grin, said, "Found the light switch." Illuminated now, the laboratory revealed its secrets more clearly. Among the myriad of devices and instruments, one piece of equipment caught their attention. It was unlike the others, sleek and almost futuristic in design. Curiosity piqued, they approached the device. As Lucas turned it on, it began to flicker with an eerie, shadow-like energy, similar to the dark aura they had seen emanating from Mordecai. Elara, examining the machine closely, realized its significance. This must be it. This is how Mordecai gained his power over the shadows. The device, seemingly a conduit or amplifier for shadow energy, offered a tangible link to the source of Mordecai's abilities. Their discovery was profound. It meant that the power Mordecai wielded was not entirely his own, but augmented by this very technology. This revelation opened up new possibilities in their fight against him and Vorath. However, they were still trapped, with the monstrous creations of the laboratory hammering on the door. Lucas and Elara knew they needed to find a way out and share this crucial discovery with Idris and the others. The laboratory held the key to defeating Mordecai, but first, they had to escape the immediate threat. As they strategized their next move, the pounding on the door grew more frantic. Time was running out, and they needed to act fast. The chapter closed with Lucas and Elara standing resolute amidst the chaos, determined to unlock the secrets of the laboratory of lost horrors and use them to their advantage in the looming battle. Chapter 5. Harnessing the Shadow. In the midst of the chaos outside the lab door, Elara focused her intellect on deciphering the mysterious machine's purpose. After piecing together snippets of information and examining its design, she hypothesized This machine seems to be connected to the Shadow Realm, a dark dimension of immense power. It appears to draw power from there and transmits it here to be used or siphoned off. As she explained, it became evident that the machine was a bridge between realms, channeling the Shadow Realm's energy into their world. However, Elara added, there's nothing here that we can use to channel or harness this power for ourselves. Mordecai must have had a way to utilize it, which we currently lack. Lucas, who had been quietly observing, suddenly held up the amulet he had retrieved from the cult of the Silver Moon mission. How about this? He suggested, the amulet glinting in the lab's artificial light. Elara's eyes lit up with realization. Its power was nullified by the reverse moonstone. Maybe we can refill it. With a new sense of purpose, they placed the amulet into the machine. The lab was filled with a pulsating hum as the machine began to draw massive amounts of energy. Shadows swirled around the room, creating a spectacle of dark energy converging towards the amulet. The process was intense and awe-inspiring. Lucas and Elara watched as the amulet absorbed the shadow energy, the once dull gemstone now glowing with a newfound power. After several tense moments, the machine powered down and the swirling shadows dissipated. The amulet, now pulsating with shadow energy, seemed reborn with a potent force. They had successfully harnessed the Shadow Realm's power, turning Mordecai's own weapon against him. This newfound power source could be the edge they needed in their battle against Vorath and Mordecai. However, with the lab's monstrous inhabitants still pounding on the door, their immediate concern was to escape. With the amulet now charged with dark energy, Lucas and Elara prepared to confront the creatures outside and find their way back to Idris and the others. Their mission in the Laboratory of Lost Horrors had taken an unexpected turn, but it had yielded a powerful tool in their ongoing fight against darkness. As they readied themselves to face what lay beyond the lab doors, Lucas and Elara knew that their journey was far from over, but they were now better equipped for the challenges ahead. Chapter 6. The Shadow Wolf emerges. Lucas, with a playful grin, quickly claimed the amulet, shouting, "Dibs on wearing it!" Elara, despite the tension, couldn't help but smile at his enthusiasm. However, her smile was laced with caution. "Just be careful, Lucas. We have no idea how shadow energy will affect you." Lucas donned the amulet confidently, but initially, nothing happened. "Didn't Fenric grab it first?" Elara reminded him. Lucas clasped the amulet tightly in his hand, focusing intently. "I can feel it," he said, his voice laced with awe. Suddenly, his body began to distort, not just transforming into his lichen form, but beyond it. Lucas became a creature of shadows, a shadow wolf. His form was a blend of lichen and living shadow, possessing the ability to move from shadow to shadow instantly. Elara watched in astonishment as Lucas demonstrated his newfound ability, darting effortlessly around the room. When he shifted back to his human form, he was exhilarated. "I did that at will," he said, a hint of disbelief in his voice. He then passed the amulet to Elara. Hesitantly, she placed it around her neck and focused. In an instant, she too transformed into a shadow wolf, darting from one shadow to the next with incredible speed. Testing their newfound ability, Lucas swung a lump of metal through her shadow form. It passed right through her without effect. "Yes," he exclaimed, excited by the discovery. "Just like those shadow creatures of Mordecai's." "Let's get out of here. Want to do the honors?" Lucas said, pointing at the bolted doors. Elara nodded, her expression somber. "They're just mindless creatures in torment." Lucas unbolted the doors, and as the grotesque creations began to pour into the lab, Elara, now the Shadow Wolf, moved swiftly among them. One by one, the creatures fell, unable to keep up with her speed and agility. "Now that's what I call an edge," Lucas remarked, impressed. Once they had cleared a path, Lucas and Elara quickly made their way out of the laboratory of lost horrors and into the daylight. The shadow wolf form allowed Elara to walk in daylight as a shadow, a remarkable ability that broadened their tactical options. Transforming back into her human form, Elara looked at Lucas, both exhilarated and overwhelmed by the possibilities. "This is crazy," she said, still trying to process it all. "I can change at will." As they stood outside the lab, taking in the daylight, they realized the implications of their new abilities. They now had a significant advantage against their enemies, a tool that could turn the tide in their ongoing battle against darkness. The journey ahead was still fraught with danger, but Lucas and Elara now possessed the power of the Shadow Wolf, a formidable ally in their fight for justice and freedom. Final chapter. Prelude to the final showdown. In the aftermath of their harrowing escape from the laboratory of lost horrors, Lucas and Elara found themselves contemplating their next move. The Shadow Wolf power they had acquired was a significant advantage, yet their enemies, Vorath and Mordecai, remained at large, their whereabouts unknown. Elara voiced her concern. "We still don't know where Vorath and Mordecai are hiding. Without that, we're fighting blind." Lucas, rummaging through his belongings, produced a half-torn letter addressed to Mordecai. "Found this inside the lab," he said, handing it to Elara. The letter, though damaged, revealed chilling details. It spoke of Vorath's grand plan, named Eclipse of the New Dawn, aiming to use his and Mordecai's combined powers to control the country, and then the world. The specifics of their scheme were lost in the missing portion of the letter. However, Lucas pointed out a crucial detail. "Look at this," he said, indicating the top of the letter. "Vorath's arrogance might be his downfall. He sent this on his own headed paper, and the address of his stronghold is right here." Elara studied the address, a mix of determination and caution in her eyes. "This could be a trap," she warned. "Maybe," Lucas acknowledged, "but now we have the edge." He gestured to the amulet they had charged with shadow energy. The two of them knew that what lay ahead was possibly the greatest challenge they had ever faced. They were preparing for an epic showdown, a final battle between them and their formidable foes, Vorath and Mordecai. It was clear that only one team could emerge victorious. As they readied themselves, the weight of their responsibility and the stakes of their mission weighed heavily on them. They were not just fighting for themselves, but for the countless lives that hung in the balance. Lucas and Elara, now empowered by the Shadow Wolf ability, were more formidable than ever. They set out towards Vorath's stronghold, the location now known thanks to his own hubris. The stage was set for a climactic confrontation, the eclipse of the New Dawn, against the guardians of light and shadow. The final chapter of their journey was upon them, and they were ready to face it head on. Lucas and Elara, united in their purpose and strength, stepped into the looming battle with a resolve to end the tyranny of Vorath and Mordecai once and for all. The showdown promised to be legendary, a clash of powers in a fight for the future. In the shadows of a world hidden from view, where the line between human and supernatural blurs, emerges a tale of two unlikely heroes. Welcome to the extraordinary saga of Lucas and Elara, werewolves bound not just by their shared nature, but by a relentless quest for justice. Every episode unravels a new chapter in their ongoing battle against the corrupt and the cruel. From the depths of the occult to the heights of corporate towers, they move in silence, striking where least expected. Their mission, to save the innocent and expose the malevolent. Armed with their wits, supernatural abilities, and a bond unbroken by adversity, they face adversaries both human and beyond. In a world where the prey can turn predator and the hunter becomes the hunted, Lucas and Elara navigate the grey areas of morality, justice, and loyalty. Join us as we delve into the heart of darkness, where danger lurks in every corner and courage is the only light. This is not just a journey through the night, it's a quest to bring balance to a world veiled in secrecy and rife with hidden threats. Get ready to enter a realm where myths come alive and heroes are born under the light of the moon. This is the world of Lucas and Elara. This is Lunar Shadows, the chronicles of Lucas and Elara. Chapter 1. Reflection before the storm. In the quiet before the dawn, Lucas and Elara found themselves at a secluded spot, away from the chaos and danger that loomed over the horizon. The stillness of the early morning provided a brief respite, a moment of calm, before they embarked on what they knew would be their greatest challenge yet. Confronting Vora and Mordecai in the battle to stop eclipse of the new dawn. Sitting side by side, they reflected on their journey so far. The path they had walked was strewn with battles against darkness, each step bringing them closer to this final confrontation. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Lucas mused, looking out at the slowly lightening sky. From fighting a group of wealthy hunters to now standing against a threat that could control the world. Elara nodded, her expression resolute. "Every battle, every challenge has led us to this point. We've grown, learned, and now we're facing the biggest threat of our lives." Their conversation turned to the power they had encountered and overcome, the cult of the Silver Moon, the tyrannical rule of Mordecai, and now the looming eclipse of the new dawn, orchestrated by Vorath. Each adversary had been formidable, each battle a test of their strength and resolve. "Do you think we're ready for this?" Elara asked, a hint of concern in her voice. Lucas took her hand, his grip firm. "We have to be. We've faced down darkness before, and we've come out stronger. This time won't be any different. We have the Shadow Wolf ability, and we have each other." Elara smiled, reassured by his words. "Together, we've taken on the impossible. Vorath and Mordecai are powerful, but so are we." As the first rays of dawn began to break, Lucas and Lara stood up, ready to face the day. The battle ahead was daunting, but they were determined to stop Vorath's plan and save the world from his grasp. "This is it, the final chapter of our journey," Lucas said, his eyes reflecting the light of the new day. "Let's put an end to eclipse of the new dawn." With a shared nod, they set off towards their destiny. The series finale awaited them, a confrontation with Vorath and Mordecai that would determine the fate of the world. Lucas and Elara were ready to fight with everything they had, for themselves, for each other, and for the future of all who lived in the shadow of the eclipse. Chapter 2. The Fortress of Shadows. Lucas and Elara arrived at the outskirts of Vorath's stronghold, a place that exuded menace and power. The building stood like a dark monolith against the sky, its architecture imposing and unwelcoming. They crouched in a concealed spot to survey the area, assessing the defenses they were about to challenge. The entrance was heavily guarded by Mordecai's shadow people, ethereal figures that moved with a ghostly grace, their presence a clear sign of the sorcerer's influence. Alongside them, were Vorath's guards, a mix of regular henchmen and supernatural beings, each one looking more dangerous than the last. "This place is heavily fortified," Elara observed, her eyes scanning the array of defenses. "Looks like Vorath isn't taking any chances." Lucas nodded in agreement, his gaze fixed on the guards. Mordecai's shadow people again, and Vorath's own crew. This won't be easy. He then turned to Elara with a half smile. "Rock, paper, scissors for the amulet." The moment of levity was brief, but needed, a reminder of their bond and shared experiences. Elara simply handed Lucas the amulet. "It's all yours," she said, confidence in her voice. She knew Lucas's newfound abilities as the Shadow Wolf would be crucial in infiltrating the stronghold and dealing with the threats inside. Lucas accepted the amulet, feeling the surge of shadow energy coursing through it. As he put it on, he felt the familiar shift, his body ready to transform into the formidable Shadow Wolf at his command. With a final glance at each other, they prepared to make their move. Lucas would take point with his Shadow Wolf abilities, able to bypass physical barriers and get the drop on their enemies. Elara, skilled in combat and strategy, would provide support, ready to engage and adapt as the situation unfolded. The stronghold of Vorath, the fortress of shadows, awaited them. It was a bastion of darkness and power, but Lucas and Elara were determined to penetrate its defenses and put an end to the eclipse of the new dawn. As they moved out from their cover, ready to confront their destiny, they knew the challenges ahead would test them like never before, but together they were a formidable force, prepared to face whatever awaited them inside the stronghold. The battle for the world's future was about to begin. Chapter 3. The Shadow Wolf's Dance. The Shadow People and Vorath's guards patrol the entrance of the stronghold with diligent precision. Their vigil was abruptly interrupted by a carefree whistling that seemed wildly out of place in the grim atmosphere. To their utter surprise, they saw Lucas nonchalantly walking up to the main entrance, a casual tune on his lips. The guards and creatures, momentarily stunned by this bold approach, watched him in disbelief. Lucas, with a confident flair, addressed them. "If you all switch your allegiance to me now, I will spare you all. If not, none of you will leave here alive." For a few seconds, an uncanny silence fell over the entrance. The creatures seemed frozen, almost considering his offer. Then, as if snapping out of a trance, they sprung into action, rushing toward Lucas with lethal intent. "Oh yeah," Lucas said with a smirk, grasping the amulet firmly. In mere seconds, his body underwent a remarkable transformation into the Shadow Wolf. His form was a fusion of werewolf and pulsating shadow energy, a sight both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Lucas moved with such incredible speed that time seemed to slow around him. He darted from one attacker to the next, his movements a blur of shadow and ferocity. The combination of his lichen agility and the power of shadows made him an unstoppable force. One by one, shadow people, creatures, and men fell, unable to match his speed or predict his shadowy strikes. Elara, from her vantage point, watched the battle unfold. She could hardly believe her eyes as Lucas, in his shadow wolf form, cleared the entrance of every single guardian. The efficiency and ease with which he dispatched the enemies were nothing short of miraculous. Once the entrance was secure, Lucas looked up at Elara and began to perform a comical floss dance, a move he had picked up from a video game. Despite the gravity of their mission, Elara couldn't help but smile at Lucas's antics. His ability to find humor even in the most dangerous of situations was one of the many reasons she admired him. With the entrance now clear, Elara joined Lucas at the stronghold's doors. They shared a brief moment of camaraderie before turning their attention to the task ahead. The heart of Vorath's power lay within, and they were one step closer to ending the eclipse of the new dawn. Together, they prepared to penetrate deeper into the stronghold. With the power of the Shadow Wolf and their unwavering determination, Lucas and Elara were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their final battle against Vorath and Mordecai. Chapter 4. The Final Stand. With a surge of strength from the Shadow Wolf, Lucas easily breached the entrance doors of the stronghold. He and Elara entered, their senses heightened for the confrontation that awaited them. Moving through the corridors, they encountered surprisingly little resistance, a quiet before the inevitable storm. As they stepped into the main area of the stronghold, they were met with an imposing sight. Before them stood Vorath and Mordecai, surrounded by an array of formidable allies, a motley assembly of shadow creatures, fighters from the casino, werewolves loyal to Vorath, and various other supernatural beings. It was a gathering of power and malice, the culmination of Vorath's grand plan. Lucas, reverting back to his human form, stepped forward with determination. "Let this be the day that two stood against many, against the odds and won," he shouted defiantly towards Vorath. But as Lucas made his bold proclamation, a familiar voice echoed from behind him. "Not just two." They turned to see Eldritch, Zephyr, Calder, and Selene standing united with them. The unexpected arrival of their allies bolstered their spirits. They were no longer a duo against an army, but a team of formidable fighters, each with their own unique strengths and abilities. The standoff was tense, a moment of silence hanging in the air before the inevitable clash. Vorath, with his trademark arrogance, smirked at the assembled group. Mordecai, his presence dark and ominous, stood silently, his eyes betraying his eagerness for the battle to commence. Lucas and Elara shared a quick glance, a silent acknowledgement of the journey that had brought them here and the fight that lay ahead. They knew this was more than just a battle for survival. It was a fight for the future, for freedom from tyranny and darkness. Eldritch, his ancient wisdom shining through his eyes, nodded at Lucas and Elara. Zephyr, ethereal and ready, floated with an air of readiness. Calder and Selene, their expressions set in determination, prepared to fight alongside the friends who had become their family. The final battle of the eclipse of the new dawn was about to begin. The odds were daunting, but Lucas, Elara, and their allies were ready to stand against Vorath and Mordecai. United in their purpose and strengthened by their bonds, they braced themselves for the clash that would determine the fate of the world. Chapter 5. The tide turns. Vorath, with a smirk that masked his malevolence, addressed Lucas and Elara. "Your bravado will be your undoing. You are hopelessly outmatched and outnumbered. I truly will enjoy watching you fall." As Vorath's minions began to advance, a battle cry erupted from Lucas. "For the Horde!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the stronghold. Elara, raising her eyebrows at Lucas's choice of words, muttered, He really needs to stop playing video games. But there was no time to ponder his gaming references. The battle was upon them. Lucas, in his Shadow Wolf form, moved with incredible speed and agility. He shifted between the advancing creatures, each one falling as he moved through their ranks. Eldritch utilized the shadows to strike at the enemy, his ancient powers a force to be reckoned with. Zephyr, in her ethereal form, swept groups of creatures into the air, scattering them with the force of the wind. Meanwhile, Elara, Calder, and Selene formed the rear guard. In their human forms, they were limited in their offensive capabilities, but remained vigilant, protecting their allies' backs. The tide seemed to be in their favor as Lucas, Eldritch, and Zephyr cut through Vorath's minions. However, the battle took a sudden and dramatic turn. Vorath stepped forward, and with a single blast of his powerful magic, caught Lucas between shadows. The energy blast hit him squarely, shattering the amulet's chain and sending it flying across the room. Lucas was forced back into his human form, vulnerable and exposed. One of Vorath's minions quickly snatched the amulet from the air and handed it over to their master. Lucas, now in his human form, retreated to where Elara, Calder, and Selene stood. They watched in horror as Vorath handed the amulet to Mordecai, saying, "Here, do something with this." Eldritch vanished into the shadows to regroup, while Zephyr remained safe in her wind form. The four werewolves, now in human form, were powerless to intervene. The once fierce battle had turned, and they stood staring in defeat, their most significant advantage now in the hands of their enemy. Vorath and Mordecai, wielding the power of the Shadow Wolf amulet, posed a threat more significant than ever before. Lucas and his team, their options dwindling, faced the grim reality of their situation. The final battle was far from over, and they would need to muster all their strength, cunning, and courage to overcome this dire turn of events. Chapter 6. The Shadow Wolves' victory. Vorath's minions encircled Lucas and his 3 werewolf companions, their faces grim with the realization of their seemingly hopeless situation. Vorath and Mordecai, with the latter clutching the amulet, approached them confidently. Vorath began to boast, reveling in his apparent triumph. "With this power, I will complete my plan to dominate the world. All who dare defy me will be enslaved or destroyed." The room filled with his malicious laughter, echoing off the walls as he prepared to annihilate the 4 werewolves. The scene looked utterly hopeless for Lucas and his friends, but just as Vorath was about to unleash his destructive power, Eldritch, in his shadow form, made a dramatic and timely intervention. He swooped down, snatched the amulet from Mordecai, and soared high above them all before throwing the amulet to the midst of the 4 werewolves. The amulet shattered upon impact, releasing a torrent of shadow energy that enveloped Lucas, Elara, Calder, and Selene. The dark energy from the amulet transferred into each of them, transforming all 4 into formidable shadow wolves. "You have about 5 minutes of power," Eldritch shouted from above. Faced with this sudden turn of events, Vorath and Mordecai retreated behind their minions. Zephyr, seizing the moment, returned to aid her allies. The 4 shadow wolves, empowered by the amulet's energy, launched into action. They moved with lethal precision and speed, eliminating Vorath's minions with each swift, shadowy strike. Eldritch, emerging from the shadows, joined the fray, taking down enemy after enemy. Vorath and Mordecai, now desperate, began hurling magical energies at the wolves. However, their attacks were futile as the shadow wolves darted and weaved through the shadows, each energy blast missing its intended target. Lucas, in his shadow wolf form, materialized behind Mordecai, striking him down with a single powerful blow. Mordecai crumpled to the ground in defeat and agony. Vorath, now standing alone against the Shadow Wolves, continued to unleash a barrage of magical energy. But like Mordecai, his efforts were in vain. The wolves' agility and mastery of the shadows made them untouchable. Behind Vorath, a dark shape loomed. Eldritch, his eyes glowing with ancient hunger. "If you don't mind, I haven't fed this evening," he said menacingly, his fangs bared. In a swift, fluid motion, Eldritch sunk his teeth into Vorath. Overwhelmed and powerless, Vorath collapsed to the floor. In the aftermath, Lucas and his team stood victorious. The stronghold, once a bastion of darkness and tyranny, was now silent, its masters defeated. Their unity and strength prevailing against the forces of Varath and Mordecai. The battle for the eclipse of the new dawn was over. Lucas, Elara, Calder, Selene, Zephyr, and Eldritch had not only saved the world from Vorath's tyranny, but had also shown the power of resilience and camaraderie as they stood amidst the remnants of the battle. They knew that their journey had changed them forever, forging bonds that would last a lifetime. The Shadow Wolves, once a symbol of fear and darkness, had become beacons of hope and strength. Lucas and his companions had emerged as heroes, their legacy a tale of courage in the face of overwhelming darkness. Chapter 7. A Victory for Freedom. As the final echoes of battle faded, the four werewolves reverted to their human forms, the shadow energy completely expended. "Oh, I like that," Lucas said with a wistful grin, clearly missing the immense power he had just wielded. Eldritch stood tall over the lifeless body of Vorath, a sense of satisfaction in his ancient eyes. "You have no idea the vintage of a sorcerer. That was delicious," he remarked, relishing the defeat of the powerful enemy. Gathering around the fallen Vorath, Eldritch addressed the group. "Today marks a victory, not just for us, but for all who value freedom and individuality. None shall seek to enslave another without facing retribution. The individual shall never be subjugated to the whims of the collective. Those who use force to oppress will always meet a greater force in retaliation." His words, imbued with the philosophy of individual rights and justice, resonated with the team. They stood together, a diverse group, united by their shared values and their commitment to fight against tyranny. One by one, they thanked each other, acknowledging the unique strengths each had brought to their shared journey. Zephyr, ethereal and serene, expressed her gratitude for finding allies in a world often hostile to her kind. Calder and Selene, warriors who had stood resilient against overwhelming odds, nodded in agreement. Their bond with Lucas and Elara strengthened through their trials. "Should evil ever again raise its head to subjugate and oppress, we will come together once more to seek justice and freedom," Lucas declared, his voice firm with conviction. The others nodded in agreement, their faces a testament to their unwavering determination. As the group said their farewells, promising to remain vigilant and ready to reunite if darkness ever threatened again, there was a sense of closure to this chapter of their lives. They had emerged victorious, but more importantly, they had forged a bond that transcended their differences, a bond built on mutual respect and a shared commitment to defending the rights of the individual against the forces of tyranny. The chapter ended with the team parting ways, each returning to their own paths, but with the knowledge that they would always be connected by the extraordinary journey they had shared. The story of their victory against Vorath and Mordecai would be a tale told for generations, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, courage and unity could triumph over oppression and evil. Final chapter. A moment of peace and the call to adventure. Days after the intense battle, Lucas and Elara found themselves enjoying a rare moment of tranquility, basking in the warmth of the sunshine. The world around them was at peace, a stark contrast to the turmoil they had recently endured. Elara, her head resting against Lucas, broke the silence. "I think we need a break," she said softly. Lucas nodded in agreement, the corners of his mouth lifting into a gentle smile. "Let's head to somewhere hot for a few months or years, but let's spend it together." His voice carried a tone of longing for a simple, peaceful life, at least for a while. They lay in each other's arms, soaking in the calm and the comfort of their shared presence. It was a rare moment of stillness in their often hectic lives, a chance to breathe and just be. "We did good, Elara," Lucas said after a moment. "We make a great team, and there's no one else I'd rather be with. You are my everything." Elara looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the depth of their shared experiences. "You think I don't know that?" she replied with a gentle tease. Lucas laughed, his heart light. "Yep, you know it." He gazed into the distance, picturing a serene future, if only for a short while. "So a year off, sunning on some beach, just you and me. How does that sound?" "That sounds wonderful," Elara agreed, her voice tinged with contentment. But their moment of peace was interrupted by a ping from Elara's phone. She checked the message and sighed. "Someone is asking for help. A group has kidnapped 2 werewolf pups, and they're being held in a secure, well-guarded compound." Lucas's smile broadened, a spark of adventure igniting in his eyes. "Oh well, the front door again, I suppose. But then, some sunshine?" Elara stood up, a determined look on her face. "Let's go." Their lives, filled with battles and heroism, called them once again. As they prepared to embark on yet another mission, they knew their journey was far from over. The world might always need heroes like them, but they also promised themselves a future of peace and tranquility, basking in the sun, just the 2 of them. For now, the call to help those in need beckoned, and they answered it together, as they always did. The final chapter closed with Lucas and Elara, hand in hand, walking towards their next adventure, their bond unbreakable, their spirits indomitable. The Shadow Wolves might rest, but they would always be ready to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey. If your thirst for the unknown and the unexplained is still unquenched, I invite you to delve deeper into the abyss of terror. Just beyond the veil of reality, another story awaits to send shivers down your spine. Dare to join me in the next video, where the unknown becomes known and the unseen seen. Until then, keep the lights dim and your mind open. This is Professor Shadow, signing off.